Alright, so I'm not gonna lie. Despite its rough reputation right from the start, I wanted to play PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale so badly when it launched. That was at the point in my life where I pretty much played Smash exclusively all the time, particularly Brawl. And I don't know, I figured that anything that takes this close of a shot towards Smash is probably still right up my alley. Unfortunately, I just didn't have any of the consoles it released on. And even after I got the consoles, I mean, by that time, this game was ancient news. But recently, I wanted to go through some PlayStation 3 games and thought this was a good place to start. From a casual standpoint, I don't really play any game competitively at all. When it comes to the licensed Smash ripoffs, I still feel like this one is by far the best. Maybe an unpopular opinion there, but I mean, the other two big ones you got, I mean, Multiverses doesn't even really exist anymore, has a plethora of issues and is its own topic. And Nick Brawl had a pretty rough start as well. And it did kind of find its footing in the second game, but at the same time, after you complete it once, there isn't much reason to really go back, honestly, unless you're a really big fan of Nickelodeon or in a specific mood for it for whatever reason. Why play a worse version of Smash when you can just play the bigger and better last few entries in the Smash series? The whole gimmick of PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale definitely has its issues, but the way they approached it and built the game around it, with there being really no focus on knockback, I mean, it just feels significantly different and unique. And I just feel like it offers something besides its roster from a gameplay perspective that Smash and just other games, at least from the ones I've played, really haven't replicated. And yikes, I just feel like they were so close here too to something special if they just took a slightly different approach. Like, what if instead of your level 1 super, they did something similar to Bayonetta's Final Smash, where you're quicker and you just use your standard attacks and you have a time frame to build up so much damage to KO people. Or they could have even just used a standard health bar, or if they wanted to take a little less of a risk and have knockback, maybe do something like King of Fighters Stadium, or I guess this wouldn't really affect 1v1s, but rather than have knockback determined by the damage you've taken, have it be determined by the damage you've given. I don't know, just a few ideas off the top of my head that I feel like still could have stood out and been unique enough. It's kind of a shame too, because I feel like a lot of the roster, I mean, they're all unique, but I feel like their viability comes down to how well you gel with the range of their first super attack or the general functionality of their second and third ones. I feel like how they did the third set of attacks could have maybe been a bit differently too. Instead of smash attacks, I feel like you almost have like a second set of specials. And maybe I'm stupid and missed some sort of cue, but it was a little harder to know, what specials were. So I don't know if they maybe have done like ranged specials and melee specials, or if one set of your specials was able to siphon, I don't know what the game calls them, the orbs that fill your super meter, instead of relying on items that may or not be turned on and throws. I did like the slightly different approach they had with throws, with it being tied to the right control stick where you would have normally had your smash attacks potentially, and having, a direct input to the direction you're going with that as opposed to needing to complete the grab first. The item selection's pretty solid too. I'm surprised you hadn't seen, once again from the other platform fighters that I've played, similar items to some that you have here, like in the gameplay here. I like this one where you select a target and then you get a set of missiles to rain down around that location. And I like there's like an axe too that's kind of like Yoshimitsu's infamous spinning attack. Just a couple that stood out. The stages, though, to tell you the truth, I feel like they feel more like Power Stone 2 stages than Smash stages, which I definitely really enjoy Power Stone, so that's not a bad thing. But you got a lot of hazards and dynamic changes. They're generally bigger, and it just, like I said, works really well with the direction they took for the game. Another interesting thing, too, is that you have to jump to blast through a platform, I believe, instead of double tapping down. So that kind of shakes things up, too. Or you almost even wonder, because for a little while I was thinking there was just no way to pass through the platforms. Either approach, I feel like, would sort of stand out and shake things up, though, for the genre. I will say there is a bit of a double-edged sword, though, with that approach, being I don't feel like any stage particularly stands out as really good or really bad. It's not that they all feel samey, but I don't know, I feel like you have your preferences when you have to deal with knockback, but with here you just sort of are more easily able to adapt to different situations on the different stages, I guess. The stage invasion concept is really cool, where you have one series sort of come in mid-match and, add new hazards and or change around the layout. A lot of times they'll add like a mini-boss too. The only thing is, I felt like almost too many of them were too out there. Like, I would have rathered more of these crossovers not be from series with such conflicting tones. Not that, one or two is bad, but I feel like it would have been nicer to see more stages like Columbia or Stowaways or Black Rock Stadium, particularly, that are more fitting, although maybe you would have ran the risk of spoiling some of the rivals. Although I feel like watching the opening cinematic sort of spoils it too, but that's pretty much universally agreed upon as one of the best parts of the game, honestly. Seeing the different interactions in that. Something Smash arguably still doesn't quite get right or, close to what they did here. The only improvement I would have really made is maybe in the future, rather than everyone having matching rivals, you can maybe have it be like a chain, because you want everyone to still get about the same amount of attention. But, you have Ratchet's rival be Jack, Jack's rival be Nathan Drake, Nathan Drake's rival be someone else, and then you just sort of cycle through until you get to whoever's Ratchet's rival, By comparison, though, the intros and outros to story mode or I should say arcade mode, are actually kind of disappointing because they all feel like the same thing. Boy, weird stuff's going on. I bet it's my series antagonist. And then at the end, wow, those were a bunch of weirdos. Time to get back to the status quo. I don't know, it would have been interesting if, they use the power or whatever that they get from the final boss, or I should say quote-unquote final boss, because you wind up just fighting mirrors of other fighters while the final boss mimics the mini-bosses from the stages. I guess it's so at least formatted a bit more like a team match where they're all against you rather than a free-for-all, but I digress. You can maybe see them use that power to do something a little wacky or self-indulgent or something a little more interesting. I mean, maybe they were just kind of restricted on what they can do there, but sort of defeats the purpose and fun of having all these different character endings in that. Arcade mode itself is kind of weird too, because like the way I play arcade mode a lot of the time is I like to just try to go through at a low difficulty, go through as quick as possible, and see who I'm able to sort of beat it the quickest or with the highest score with. But here you have 8 stages, and half of them are timed 3-minute matches, which sort of prevents me from doing that and sort of drags on, which, I mean, I guess I kind of get it because they don't really have like another big mode like All-Star mode or anything, although none of the characters outside of the final boss repeat, and with a relatively small cast, you wind up fighting just about everyone anyway. Hell, if they set the mimics for the final boss at specific characters, because that seems to be randomized, then you would get everyone. Or actually, it probably would have been cooler if they somehow tracked who gave you the biggest challenge, and those were the mimics the final boss chose. And I don't have a problem with maybe one timed battle, but I don't know, it feels more like padding out the time you're playing the game as opposed to giving the player a little more control as to how much time they spend on arcade mode. Also, for some reason, I mean, DLC stages, you get why they don't appear, but this stage, Alden's Tower, and the stage before, Sandover Village, despite being in base game, don't really appear in arcade mode for some reason. Like, I went through it with just about everyone, and they just never showed up. The stages aren't really set or anything besides the first one is always at the Parappa stage, but I don't know. Another thing this game does do that's still better than Smash is today is character customization. I mean, they give everyone a unique, cool alt. Some are DLC. I think some of the DLC characters don't have one, but much better attempt than you see out of Smash. And you can even customize your intro or outro and taunt animations during matches, which is a nice touch. And you can even have a more traditional customization of a player tag than you do with Smash. It felt, a lot more like what you see out of Tekken and all of that. Some people just say the roster may be kind of dated now, and yeah, but that's kind of natural. But I don't feel like there's too many egregious picks. I mean, we know Smash itself, too, likes to throw in some obscure, retro, oddball choices. I will say Noriko, who I'm playing as here, kind of reminds me of Alloy in a way. And it's kind of funny, too, because Kat is considered the best character in the game, and it almost feels like a deja vu. Actually, this would have occurred earlier to the Bayonetta situation. They both were DLC, and I feel like they've got some similar attacks in that even, too. So, who knows if PlayStation will ever revisit this concept, or if anyone will even attempt anything close to the unique gameplay twists, which, like I said, is a shame because, like I said, it just didn't work out for them, but I don't know, I feel like you can still kind of build a lot off of it. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy and it's really not worth the risk, but hey, one can dream, right?